Welcome. In this video, we're going to discuss the chemical senses. By the end of the video, you should be able to describe the basic functions of the chemical senses, which are taste and smell, understand how taste buds function, and discuss how the brain senses chemicals that reach the nose. Scientists consider there to be 5 basic tastes. 4 have been studied for a really long time: salty, sour, bitter, and sweet. And most taste researchers now include umami, which is a 5th taste, and some are also suggesting we might have a taste bud for fatty foods, which would be a 6th taste. These tastes are part of our evolutionary heritage, and each distinct taste has an evolutionary function. So let's discuss those now. So salty, the detection of saltiness is important to help keep our electrolytes in check. So when we sweat, when we're dehydrated, our electrolytes, our salt balance is off. And sodium chloride, which is salt, is very important in the functioning of our cells. And although we didn't really talk about it, sodium and chloride separately are actually very important in helping those neurons in our brain communicate via the action potential. Now, sour and bitter tastes are going to help us detect food that might be bad. So sour detects acidity, rancid food. Of course, now many of us have acquired a taste for sour foods, sour gummies and things like that. And bitter is going to allow us to sense natural poisons. So you can think these might be important, for our ancestors as well as animals that didn't have refrigerators, and when they come upon food, should they eat it? Is it bad? Is it going to make them sick? Sweetness is going to tell us that food has a lot of energy-rich nutrients. The sweetness tells us there's a presence of sugar, and those sugars help give us energy. They're the body's main source of fuel. So sweet taste is important evolutionarily in helping animals as well as humans detect foods that were good sources of energy. The 5th taste is umami. Now, umami is a taste for amino acids, specifically glutamate, and it's going to signal that foods have a lot of protein in them. Remember, we talked about glutamate being the major excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain, but it's also very common in protein-rich food as an amino acid. You might have heard of monosodium glutamate. That's common in Chinese food. It produces a savory taste, especially when combined with sodium or salt. So examples of foods you might have that umami taste or that are high in this glutamate would be shellfish, seaweed, Parmesan cheese, blue cheese, soy sauce, ketchup, fermented and aged foods. So as food enters the mouth and is dissolved by saliva, it stimulates thousands of receptors that are in the tongue. So these taste receptors can also be found in the throat, some in the cheek and the roof of the mouth, but most are in the tongue. If you're near someone or you're near a mirror, stick out your tongue and look, and you see all those little bumps. Those little bumps are called the papilla. So those are the bumps on your tongue, and that's what we see here. So this little bump here is enlarged here, and what we see is the top of the papilla, but it really has these little crevices or these valleys, and in those valleys they're lined with taste buds. So the taste bud is going to be a bundle of taste receptor cells. So this is one of these. So this is a taste bud here enlarged. Now a taste bud can be anywhere from 50 to 100 taste receptor cells. Somewhere you see 15 to 50, but I've seen places where it says as many as 150 of these taste receptor cells can be in a single taste bud. Now they're bundled together and they form this little pore. And out of these pores you have these little hair cells. So the hair cells are called microvilli, and they're the location of the actual taste receptors. So the chemicals that are dissolved by the saliva in our mouths are going to come and they're going to trigger these taste receptors or the microvilli, and that's going to send a signal to the taste receptor cell. So the taste receptor cell is a cell that receives information from the microvilli and that transmits the signal to the brain. So these signals are going to go to the medulla, the thalamus, the limbic system, and to the gustatory cortex where the sensation of taste is. So the energy or the stimulus for taste is chemical, and the taste receptors are chemoreceptors. Now, while the taste receptors for all the different tastes are distributed across the tongue, they are highly focused in certain areas. It used to be thought that they were only in certain areas, like bitter in the back of your tongue, sour on the side. We now know that there are taste receptors for all these different tastes all over the tongue. They're just more highly focused for bitter in the back of the tongue. Again, think that sensation of bad food that maybe you'd have to have that gag reflex. Sour on the side of the tongue, again to help you detect that rancid food. Sweet and umami, which is going to give you energy, which is going to help your muscles develop with the protein, right? So that's at the tip of the tongue so that you can really quickly decide if this food's going to give you the energy and the protein that you need. For the sense of smell, the stimulus again is going to be chemical, and the receptors again are going to be chemoreceptors. The chemicals are going to be traveling through the air and enter up into our nose, and then again we have hair cells up in the nose, and they are stimulated, and it's going to go then directly to the olfactory bulb, because remember, while all the other senses before they go to their appropriate cortical region have to relay in the thalamus, the sensation of smell does not. Sensation of smell is important in the recognition of food, mates, family, regulation of appetite. Sometimes it gives us an emotional tie to the food or the smells that we have. Axons from the olfactory bulb are going to go into the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the piriform cortex, the limbic system, and many others. A lot of these areas are involved in emotion and memory, and maybe again that's why smell can evoke an emotion and trigger certain memories even.